It was relief, pride, and something deeper. The validation that the quarterback he believed in, fought for, and defended finally showed everyone else what he already saw. Shedeur didn't just win a game. He didn't just complete a highlight throw. He started something. Because behind that performance was a long trail of doubt, criticism, and people waiting to see him fail. A reality he addressed directly when he said, "It ain't gonna happen." And from the way he played, he meant every word. But that breathtaking debut, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't luck. It was the beginning of a story years in the making, one that the Browns organization can no longer ignore. Before Shedeur Sanders completed a single drive, before he settled into the rhythm of the game, he unleashed the kind of throw that instant drifting to his right, under pressure, with defenders closing in from every angle. And somehow, the ball didn't just arrive. It arrived exactly where only his receiver could touch it. It was the kind of throw that makes defensive players stop mid-step, the kind that forces a locker room to rethink everything they believed about a rookie. Myles Garrett said what everyone else was thinking. There's not many guys in the league who can make that throw. Coming from someone who has terrorized elite quarterbacks for years, that wasn't just praise. It was a warning shot to the rest of the NFL. The crazy part? That wasn't even his only deep strike of the night. Minutes later, Shedeur rolled right again, luring defenders toward him, then fired a perfect deep ball to Jerry Jeudy. It should have been a touchdown if not for a costly fumble. But the placement was flawless. No panic, no hesitation, just a young quarterback reading the field, trusting his instincts and making throws veterans hesitate to attempt. What made these plays special wasn't just the distance, it was the timing, anticipation, and sheer confidence behind them. Most rookies play safe. Most try to avoid mistakes. Shedeur stepped onto the field like someone who already knew he belonged. Those deep shots weren't accidents. They were decisions. Calculated, fearless, and executed with a level of precision Cleveland hasn't seen from a first-time starter in decades. And as soon as those throws left his hand, something shifted. The crowd felt it. The players felt it. Even the coaching staff, who had been quiet about him all season, couldn't deny it. But that wasn't the biggest shock of the day. Because the real story unfolded once the game ended. When the final whistle blew, most fans expected the usual routine. Players celebrate, coaches give quick handshakes, and the front office stays invisible like always. But Andrew Berry didn't stay invisible this time. He walked straight into the locker room with purpose, scanning the room until he found the rookie who had just flipped the entire franchise narrative on its head. Shedeur wasn't even taking his jersey off yet when Berry wrapped him in a hug that said everything words didn't. Cameras caught it. The genuine smile, the pride in Berry's eyes, the way he held Shedeur like someone who had just watched years of quiet belief finally explode into reality. GMs don't usually show emotion. They don't hug. They don't run into locker rooms. They don't break character unless something truly important just happened. For Berry, this wasn't just a win. It was personal. Reports claim he'd been pushing internally for Shedeur long before anyone else publicly backed him. Rumors around frustration was visible. Yet Berry kept pushing, kept believing, kept insisting that the rookie's talent wasn't just real, it was rare. And that belief didn't stop at draft day. Insiders have said Berry worked behind the scenes to ensure Shedeur got valuable reps, even when it seemed like the coaching staff was leaning toward safer veteran options. Nothing confirmed, but the whispers were loud enough to make fans wonder if the front office and coaching room weren't aligned on the QB timeline. But the moment Berry hugged Shedeur, all that speculation suddenly made sense. This wasn't a GM congratulating a player. This was a man watching his gamble pay off. This was the moment where the entire league saw that the person who knew Shedeur best was the one who believed in him first. Long before Shedeur Sanders ever took an NFL snap, His story inside the Browns organization had already begun. Not on the field. Cleveland. What fans saw on TV was calm and controlled. But behind the scenes, the tension was real. Because as reports suggest, Andrew Berry didn't just like Shedeur. He wanted him badly. Some insiders even claim Berry graded him as a day 1 or day 2 talent, a quarterback who could sit for a short time, but ultimately become the franchise's future. The problem? Not everyone in the room agreed. Rumors circulated that several scouts preferred other prospects, safer names, or quarterbacks with more traditional NFL pedigrees. A few even questioned whether Shedeur's success came from his father's influence, a narrative that unfairly followed him through the entire draft process. And while other teams looked at the Colorado tape and hesitated, Berry saw frustration reportedly grew. Jimmy Haslam later confirmed it himself. At the end of the day, that was Andrew's call. And that statement revealed more than most people realized. It confirmed that Berry wasn't just supportive. He was fighting internally to make sure Sanders didn't slip past Cleveland. And when the Browns finally used that 5th-round pick on him, it wasn't a casual decision. It was the moment Berry put his reputation on the line. Because drafting a quarterback isn't like drafting any other position. It's a statement, a direction, a gamble that either turns you into the visionary GM who changed the franchise or the person blamed for years. But Berry didn't hesitate. He believed Shedeur's game translated. He believed the confidence wasn't arrogance, but a quarterback's DNA. He believed the kid had something the Browns hadn't seen in decades. And the moment Shedeur walked into the building, Berry worked tirelessly to make sure the organization saw what he already knew. But while Berry was pushing behind the scenes, the locker room was quietly forming its own opinion of the rookie. Long before the cameras caught Shedeur launching 50-yard lasers on game day, the players inside the Browns facility already had a sense something was different about him. You can't fool a locker room, not with stats, not with highlight clips, not even with hype. Players judge quarterbacks by one thing: what they see and feel in real time. And inside that building, the whispers started early. Offensive linemen noticed first. Rookies usually have shaky command in the huddle, rushed cadence, nervous eyes, hesitation. But not Shedeur. He called plays with the calm of someone who'd been in NFL huddles for years. He pointed out protections. He controlled tempo. He wasn't trying to fit in. He was trying to lead. And veterans respect that. Receivers felt it next. They talked privately about how the rookie pushed the ball in practice, about the timing on his deep shots, about throws landing in spots only top-tier quarterbacks can hit. Even the backups running scout team reps admitted Shedeur delivered the ball differently. Cleaner, sharper, quicker. But Myles Garrett, he delivered the loudest message. After that 57-yard throw, he said flat out, "There's not many guys in the league that can make that throw." That wasn't flattery. That was a superstar defender recognizing a rare trait. The type of trait you build a franchise around. When a team's biggest star speaks that boldly about a rookie, it sends a message through the entire roster. This guy is real. And once the locker room gets behind someone, momentum is unstoppable. Suddenly, receivers wanted more reps with him. Linemen wanted to protect harder for him. The defense wanted to play lights out because they believed the offense finally had someone who could capitalize. It wasn't fan hype. It wasn't media buzz. It was on-field respect, earned one rep at a time. The crazy part? Even with the locker room buzzing, one person still wasn't ready to show his hand: the head coach. For weeks, Kevin Stefanski barely said a word about Shedeur Sanders. Reporters asked, fans speculated, analysts wondered, yet Stefanski stayed silent, offering nothing more than generic comments and vague answers that revealed absolutely nothing about how he viewed the rookie. It almost became a running joke. Everyone could see Shedeur's potential, but the head coach acted like he didn't want to acknowledge it. Then came Shedeur's first start, and suddenly everything changed. One performance, one night of composed decision-making, pinpoint throws, and explosive downfield shots forced Stefanski to finally break the silence he'd been hiding behind all season. Instead of the cautious, guarded coach fans were used to, he spoke with an energy that felt almost surprising. He praised the offense's operation. He applauded the deep shots. He even went out of his way to defend Shedeur when reporters tried to focus on the few mistakes he made. But here's the part that had people talking. Stefanski didn't just compliment the throws, he emphasized the mindset. He said Shedeur wasn't complacent, wasn't satisfied, and was pushing himself every single day. That's not the kind of language a head coach uses unless he sees something real, something worth investing in. Still, many fans couldn't shake the feeling that Stefanski had been late to the party. Rumors suggest the coaching staff wasn't fully aligned with the front office on when Shedeur should play. Some insiders even hint that Stefanski preferred sticking with veteran-style options earlier in the season to protect the offense. Not confirmed, but the speculation grew louder the moment he changed his tone. Because here's the truth, no coach switches from silence to praise unless he's been convinced or pressured by undeniable results. And that's exactly what Shedeur delivered. A performance so clean, so confident, that even the most cautious coach couldn't brush it aside. But the real turning point wasn't Stefanski's words. It was the reaction from the front office, the people who had been fighting for Shedeur since day one. You can talk about potential all day. You can scout, speculate, analyze film, and debate upside until your voice goes hoarse. But eventually, a quarterback has to show the league who he is. And in his very first start, Shedeur Sanders didn't just look promising, he delivered the kind of plays that instantly rewrite expectations. The 57-yard bomb was the headline, but it wasn't an isolated flash. It was part of a pattern that formed throughout the night. Every big moment tested him, and every time he responded like a quarterback who had already studied these situations 100 times. When the pocket collapsed, he didn't panic. He slid, kept his eyes downfield, and trusted his arm. When defenders closed in, he didn't force throws into traffic. He waited, manipulated angles, and struck when windows opened. That level of poise isn't normal for a rookie. It's something coaches spend years trying to develop. The deep ball to Jerry Jeudy was another example. Rolling right, throwing across his momentum, launching a perfect strike that hit Jeudy in stride. The play should have been a touchdown if not for the fumble. But the throw itself? Pure NFL-level timing and precision. Even veterans struggle with that. Shedeur made it look routine. Then came the touchdown sequence, a window-tight throw that required anticipation, patience, and absolute confidence. He delivered it without hesitation. And when his receiver slipped earlier in the game, he didn't flinch. Great quarterbacks forget instantly and keep firing. Shedeur kept the offense moving, kept the defense honest, and kept his teammates believing they weren't just running plays, they were attacking. What stood out most was how natural it all looked. Most first-time starters look overwhelmed. They rush reads, they miss windows, they crumble under pressure. Shedeur didn't blink. He played like someone who had waited for this moment his entire career and wasn't about to waste a second of it. By the end of the night, it wasn't just the fans buzzing, it was the entire team, the locker room, the coaches, the analysts. Everyone could feel it. Something different just arrived in Cleveland. But the biggest shift wasn't on the field. It was in how the entire franchise reacted afterward. When a rookie steps onto an NFL field, fan excitement is expected. Social media hype is expected. Even a few analysts giving optimistic takes is expected. But what happened after Shedeur's first start wasn't just hype. It was momentum. And momentum inside an NFL franchise is a completely different beast. The moment the game ended, the buzz spread everywhere. Players talked about the poise they saw. Coaches replayed the deep shots. Analysts clipped every angle of that 57-yard throw. But what made this moment feel different was the reaction from the people who typically stay quiet, the front office, the veterans, and even the fan base that has learned to be cautious after years of painful false starts. The fan reaction exploded immediately. Browns fans, usually guarded after decades of heartbreak, felt something they hadn't felt in a long time: confidence. Not hope, not maybe, but confidence in a quarterback who looked like he belonged. Social media was filled with clips, breakdowns, and declarations that Cleveland finally found their guy. The media picked up the wave next. National shows started running segments titled things like, "Did the Browns unearth a hidden gem?" And "Is Shedeur Sanders the answer Cleveland has been waiting for?" Analysts who hadn't said a word about him all season suddenly couldn't stop talking about his arm talent, his poise, and the way he elevated everyone around him. But the real shift happened inside the building. Veterans, the players who've lived through forgettable seasons, inconsistent quarterback play, and wasted prime years, walked into the facility the next day with a different kind of energy. They saw the tape. They saw the throws. They saw a rookie who didn't play like a rookie. And the quiet conversations began. "We can win with this guy. This feels different. If this is real, the future just changed." For the first time in a long time, the Browns weren't discussing damage control or short-term fixes at quarterback. They were talking about potential, real, sustainable potential. But every rise comes with a question. Are the Browns ready to commit to this future, or will old habits get in the way? Every franchise reaches a crossroads, a moment where the past and the future collide, where old habits must be abandoned if anything new is going to grow. For the Cleveland Browns, that moment arrived the instant Shedeur Sanders stepped onto the field and played like someone who wasn't just ready for the NFL, but ready to lead it. What made his debut special wasn't just the highlight throws, the perfect deep shots, or the poise under pressure. It was the shift he created, the way he subtly, quietly changed how everyone around him thought about this team. Andrew Berry's emotional reaction wasn't just a GM celebrating a win. It was a man who had fought behind the scenes, who had believed when others didn't, finally seeing proof his instincts were right. It was validation, relief, and the unmistakable realization that he might have found the quarterback Cleveland has been searching for since the 90s. The players felt it too. The way Myles Garrett spoke, the way the receivers responded, the way the locker room rallied around him. You can't fake that kind of collective belief. Not in the NFL. Not in a league built on performance and pressure. When a quarterback earns respect this quickly, teams take notice. Even Kevin Stefanski, who spent most of the season avoiding the topic entirely, couldn't keep the mask on after Shedeur's debut. He praised the throws, the command, the attitude. It was the first time all year the head coach publicly acknowledged the franchise might be looking at something real. And that brings us to the only question that matters now. Will Cleveland fully commit to this moment? Or will they fall back into the hesitation that has cost them so many chances before? Because Shedeur Sanders didn't just play well. He didn't just exceed expectations. He planted a flag, a clear, undeniable statement that he's ready for more. The future is right in front of them. Now it's up to the Browns to decide whether they're ready to embrace it or let it slip away like so many times before.